We are heading to the championship round. Going into the championship round. This is it now, championship round.
It's the Championship Rounds podcast, episode 6. Today, I'm talking about 10 up-and-coming fighters, not necessarily young, but fighters that maybe you don't know about, that you definitely will know about, or you should know about. I'm going to be talking about fighters from both the MMA world and the boxing world. Just anyone who I think you need to keep an eye on, or jump on the bandwagon of early before they make it to the big time. No one wants to be accused of being a bandwagoner, right? So you want to jump on these fighters before they start. This episode was inspired by this week's UFC Fight Night, Cerrone versus Till, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about straight away. Darren Till. Darren Till is 24 years old. He's had a few fights in the UFC, but never really a name that many people knew. Certainly not the average fan. He's from Liverpool, England. Not really a big name in the UK either. Lived in Brazil for a while. Learned his trade there. Never took on any massive names, any big paydays, until now. He was given the chance by Donald Cerrone, an absolute veteran and one of the best characters and one of my favourite fighters in the sport. Darren Till came in with 15 wins and a draw to his name. Cerrone coming off the back of 2 losses. Darren Till gets the win in spectacular fashion. Just went in there, aggressive, dominated, finished Cerrone in the first round. Darren Till now has 16 wins and 1 draw to his name at only 24 years of age. He's now ranked the 8th best welterweight in the UFC. He's so fun to watch. He's aggressive. He's got incredible striking. I mean, a future match with Darren Till versus Wonderboy could be a potential for one of the greatest matches, especially from a hardcore MMA fan, a purist standpoint. He's massive for the welterweight division. He's jacked. He's got that low body fat. In shape. Walks around in the high 190s. He's 6 foot, 72-inch reach. He's got all the makings of just being an absolute dominant force in the welterweight division, and could be a future title holder. I mean, this guy believes it himself more than anyone I've ever seen. Like, he genuinely thinks he's the best in the world at any weight class. I listened to him on Ariel Helwani's show in the backstage scrums. He honestly believes that there isn't anyone alive who's better at this than him. He thinks he can beat anyone. He'll take in. I mean, he called out Mike Perry after the fight. He doesn't care who they are. He knows, and he thinks he can beat them. So Darren Till, all the makings of a star, all the potential of a great. Next up, I want to talk. We'll staying on the theme of the UFC. Brett Johns. He's a 25-year-old from Swansea, Wales. He's 14-0. He has 2 wins in the UFC. An absolutely fantastic wrestler. Smothers his opponents. He's got a takedown average of 7 takedowns per 3 rounds. So he averages 7 takedowns in 15 minutes. That's ridiculous. He makes everyone fight his fight. If you're a striker and you come at him, you want to trade and bang, next thing you know, you're up against the cage on the floor and he's on top of you, dropping nasty elbows. He's currently, like I said, he's currently 14-0, has only 25 years old, has massive potential, keeps getting better. Who knows? He's got a fight in December on the Ultimate Fighter finale card. Wasn't in the Ultimate Fighter, but he's just on the card. If he wins that, puts on a good performance, who knows, could start climbing his way up the rankings and becoming one of Wales's only stars in in the UFC, up there with Jack Marshman at the moment. So Brett Johns definitely one to keep an eye on. Next, we're going to switch to boxing, and I'm going to talk about one of my favourite up-and-coming boxers in Josh Buatsi. He's 24 years old. He won a bronze at the Rio Olympic Games for Great Britain at light heavyweight with a third-round knockout to make the quarterfinals. He's now 2-0 as a pro under the management and promoting of Eddie Hearn. He's got his third fight this weekend on the Anthony Joshua Carlos Takam card. And I think this boy has all the talent, and with the promoting of someone like Eddie Hearn, I think he has all the makings of becoming the next Anthony Joshua. You know, as long as he stays grounded, keeps padding out that record, you know, keeps putting on great performances in front of these British crowds, I think he's going to become a fan favourite in Britain, especially with their medal for Britain in the Olympic Games. So Josh Buatsi, definitely the future of British boxing. Next, I want to talk about Jack Shaw. Jack Shaw, featherweight fighter, currently fights in Cage Warriors, defeated as an amateur at 12-0, 6-0 as a pro. Now, this guy is the definition of an aggressive fighter. He smothers his opponents with his game. He's going to strike them with knees, elbows, punches, kicks, anything. He's always adapting, always learning. The true definition of an entertaining fighter. He's always adding new elements to his game. He's got some of the nastiest elbows in the business. People chant Elbow City when he fights. He's extremely confident. You know, coming from that family background, you know, of growing up training in Tulare combat almost all his life. Unlike a lot of fighters, this wasn't his only option as a career path. I mean, he's got a university degree. He could have done many other things with his life, but he's chosen this road because it's his passion and it's something he believes he's world class at. And personally, I think Jack Shaw has all the potential of being a star. He's a fan favourite in Wales at the moment, in the UK. In the last Cage Warriors fight, he wasn't the headliner, but he may as well have been, because 95% of the crowd were there for him, chanting his name, chanting Jack Shaw's on fire. Everyone loves Jack Shaw. You know, you watch one of his fights, you know it's going to be a fantastic and fun fight to watch. So get on board the Jack Shaw hype train. Next, Aaron Pico. Aaron Pico is 21 years old. Now, he's only 1-1 as a pro, but we can't read too much into this loss. This loss came in the Bellator Madison Square Garden card, Chael Sonnen versus Wanderlei Silva. We can't read too much into this loss because it was his first professional fight, and it was in somewhere like Madison Square Garden. It was a new experience for him. I think he got caught with a guillotine. He was quite unlucky. You know, there was so much hype behind him leading up into the fight. There was so much pressure on him. I think maybe he collapsed under that pressure. Got a bit unlucky with his loss. But, however, he is regarded as the most promising prospect in mixed martial arts. And this praise comes from people like Chael Sonnen and Brendan Sharp, who believe that he is the future of MMA and has the potential to be the best in the world. He is the definition of a true prodigy. He has multiple medals at world championship level, freestyle wrestling. So Aaron Pico, definitely one to watch. You know, Chael Sonnen cannot say enough about this guy. They say that it's an inevitability that he's going to become a world champion. And he's only 21, so he has so much time to get even better, which is quite scary. Another young fighter, 21 years old, James Gallagher, 7-0 as a pro. Currently fights in Bellator. Trained with Conor McGregor back in his home country of Ireland. He has exciting wins. He puts on a show. He's not just there to get a win. He's there to get, and he's there to be the most entertaining fight on the card. And not only an entertaining fight, but an entertaining personality. He's one of the loudest, most confident people you'll ever see in this sport. He always talks the talk, and he's proven that he can walk the walk. You know, people say that Having trained with McGregor, coming from that background, acting like him. Maybe he's trying to copy McGregor's formula of success, and some people regard him as a Conor McGregor ripoff. I don't think that is the case. I think just from a pure talent perspective, he is fantastic. And at only 21 years of age and 7-0 as a pro, he can go a long, long way. And I don't think it'll be too long before we see him in the UFC. And speaking of the UFC, Mickey Gall, 4-0 as a pro. Can't read too much into too many of those wins, considering 2 of them were over Mike Jackson and CM Punk. Not the most impressive opponents for the resume. However, proved himself when he called out and came up against Sage Northcutt, and really showed his overall game. I mean, he can strike, he can take you to the mat, and he can submit you. I think all his wins come by submission. Scary, scary ground game. Having started as a boxer at 13 years old and transitioning into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at 16. He has all the makings of a great MMA fighter, and again has ridiculous confidence in himself. I mean, he calls out a new opponent at the end of every win. After beating Sage Northcutt, he called out UFC veteran Dan Hardy. He obviously has this crazy belief in himself. He's fighting next month on the Michael Bisping GSP prelim card against Randy Brown. So looking forward to that one and seeing if Mickey Gall can keep going with this hype train that he has behind him. Obviously a great personality to go with him as well. So talking about the guy he beat also makes this list, Sage Northcutt. Sage is only 21 years old, and what a talent and what a personality. I mean, he's one of Reebok's ambassadors at only 21 years old. He's got a fantastic personality, probably the nicest guy in the sport. Always smiling, always positive, never has a bad word to say about anyone. And what a talent. I mean, his kickboxing record is as a pro is 15-0. He's got an MMA record of 10-2. He's been doing this all his life. He was the youngest person to ever make the cover of the sport magazine, Sport Karate. I think that was when he was 9 years old. So he's always been a success in combat sports. He's got 77 World Youth Championships to his name in karate. In high school, he was a state medalist for wrestling. So he has all the ingredients to be a star, and all the accolades and potential to be one of the very best at the elite level in the future, especially at only 21 years of age. So Sage Northcutt, definitely keep your eye on this guy, because I think he could be one of the future stars and front runners in the UFC. We're going to leave off by talking about 2 boxers who you really should know about or take note of. So the first one's Diego De La Hoya, the cousin of Oscar De La Hoya. He's 22 years old, has over 250 fights of experience. He's 20-0 as a pro at only 22 years old. He's undefeated at super bantamweight. He holds the WBC Youth Championship. He had a great knockout victory over the undefeated Santa Mora on the undercard for the Canelo Khan fight. If you haven't seen that, go and check that one out. It's very impressive. So this guy has a ton of experience, a great resume at only 22 years old. Has the potential to be one of the biggest stars in the sport in the future. He could be the next big thing in Mexican boxing. Obviously, you've got Chavez, Canelo. Maybe the next one we'll be talking about De La Hoya again. And lastly, David Benavidez, only 20 years old, the youngest on this list. He's 19-0 as a pro at 20 years old. He's almost got more wins than he has lived years on this planet. He's got 17 knockouts. He's won the WBC World Super Middleweight title. That's the youngest world champion in boxing right now, and the youngest champion at super middleweight ever. He definitely has one of the brightest futures in the sport, and will no doubt have an outstanding career. It's hard to say he's up and coming because he's already a world champion, but he doesn't have that notoriety yet. But I think he definitely will do when he continues to defend and dominate everyone in his division. So, David Benavidez, keep your eye on him. 20 years old, world champion, outstanding performances if you want to go and look some of those up. So, that's it. That's my 10 up and coming, if you will, my 10 guys to watch out for in the fight world, who I think in the near future have the potential to become some of the biggest names and some of the best names in the fight game. So let's run through those again quickly. Keep your eyes on and jump on the hype train of Darren Till, Brett Johns, Josh Boazzi, Jack Tank Shaw, Aaron Pico, James Gallagher, Mickey Gall, Sage Northcutt, Diego De La Hoya, and David Benavidez. Thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of the Championship Rounds podcast. Leave some comments below of anyone I've missed out or anyone you think has the potential to be one of the biggest names in the fight game in the near future. And thanks for listening, and that's going to do it for this one.